Welcome to VidZet, your home for careful consideration of our common concerns. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Please share this video with others if you find it worthy. Enjoying it for yourself doesn't help us much in winning the war of ideas. It's time to get back to the root of the problems we're facing in American politics. Many will point to the breakdown of the family. That's true. Others point to the subversion of the Constitution by the courts. That's true too. Still others point to Congress moving all power to the federal government. Yeah, that's true again. But these are just symptoms. They aren't the root of the problem. The ultimate source of problems is a philosophy most of the Antifa aren't even aware of, but their teachers and leaders have completely sold out to. It's called postmodernism. Postmodernism has its ultimate roots in rationalism, which started with the French philosopher Descartes in the 17th century. His key contribution was that there is a solid basis for knowing and understanding. In order for a human to be able to doubt his own existence, he must first exist. This initial step allowed exploration into other aspects of truth, including the fact that absolute truth exists. While there have been many steps on the way, postmodernism is a rejection of rational thought. Let me say that again. Postmodernism is a rejection of reason. In short, the postmodern denies that absolute truth exists. Instead, he treats the idea of truth as a social construct. His truth and your truth can completely contradict each other, and they're still true. Right. I've got some Florida swampland for you. It's critically important to understand that the postmodern mind has to separate social truth from physical truth. After all, if a postmodern deposits $1,000 in your bank, you'd better write the correct number down on the deposit ticket. He'll sue you if you record that he only deposited $100. But when social issues are in play, forget about it. Because it does not recognize any absolute truth, the postmodern mind has no ultimate purpose. After all, ultimate purpose comes from absolute truth, and God designed us with a need to serve Him. Parents understand this intuitively as they seek the best for their kids, and kids innately understand it in their constant search for boundaries. Those limits describe where they are safe, and they tell them where their proper service lies. When absolutes disappear, purpose disappears. And as the serpent noted at the tree, the postmodern mind considers itself to be a god. Therefore, it has no higher purpose to serve than itself, and this places the postmodern mind in conflict with itself. We aren't gods, and we do have a need for a higher purpose. The next thing that goes away is reason. If there is no absolute truth, there cannot be any logic, since logic depends on the primary fact that everything is itself. It cannot be something other than itself. This is called the law of identity. A boy cannot be a girl, and a girl cannot be a boy. Those are immutable characteristics. But the postmodern mind, cut loose from reality, finds itself at war with reality. This is an impossible situation. When you are at war with yourself, even if you don't realize it, the internal conflict cannot leave you unharmed. This conflict will always play out in the outside world. Michel Foucault, one of the towering figures of postmodern philosophy, descended into sexual confusion and depravity through which he contracted HIV. He ultimately died a tortured death from neurological complications of AIDS. Others have less dramatic difficulties, but we see the result of their internal conflicts on the evening news. The postmodern mind is manifested in mild form as political correctness. In its stronger form, postmodernism is Antifa. We watch Antifa loudly screaming, "Love trumps hate," as they are pounding peaceful Trump supporters with baseball bats. But to them, they don't have to support the idea that we are haters, since they believe it, and truth is necessarily what they believe, instead of being a representation of reality. By now, you see that there's no way to deal with a mind that's that far gone. But many aren't quite that insane, and I'm using the word carefully. Insanity is a legal term, not a medical term. An insane person is one who does not understand the wrongfulness of his actions. So when Antifa regards bodily injury as loving, Antifa is insane. So what can we do? Mike Cernovich has written a book titled The Guerrilla Mindset. In it, he basically states that the proper way to deal with this insanity is first to know your subject, and second, take no prisoners. In other words, act like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is in such command of his subject that he's able to muster an overwhelming library of facts for his arguments. In his Q&A sessions, he often runs into lefties who challenge him. But in a very respectful way, he tells them in direct and clear language that they are wrong, and proceeds to explain why. His book on defeating liberals in verbal combat is a distillation of his technique. To see how not to deal with the left, watch Marco Rubio tackle an NRA question at the CNN town hall.
Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future?
So, number one, the positions I hold on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. Number two, no, the answer to the question is that people buy into my agenda. And I do support the Second Amendment. And I also support the right of you and everyone here to be able to go to school and be safe.
What Marco should have done is to throw it back in the lefty's face by saying, quote, "Absolutely, I will accept NRA money if they offer it. The NRA is the only organization that's been fighting to keep you safe for the last century and a half. They have worked tirelessly to support the right for you to speak out against them as well. No progressive organization can come close to what they have done to keep America free and safe." End quote. But our ultimate objective can't be to win an argument. Rather, we have to make the lefty start to think. And the way we do it is to demonstrate that truth exists. That is, there are absolutes. The logical, but probably not so effective way is to ask the lefty if he believes in absolute truth. He will almost always argue in some bumbling way that there are no absolutes. To which you respond, "Are you absolutely sure?" If he says yes, then he's agreed that there are absolutes and has refuted his own argument. If he says no, then he cannot maintain that there are no absolutes and has also refuted himself. But such a logical argument will bounce off a mind that has rejected logic. An alternate approach uses Avicenna's observation that those who deny absolute truth, quote, "should be beaten or burned with fire until they concede that to be beaten is not the same as to not be beaten, and to be burned is not the same as to not be burned," close quote. Applied to Parkland, is the coach dead? Are you absolutely sure? Of course, this absolute surety forces the admission of absolutes. Now you can tackle truth. For example, Nicholas Cruz was identified to law enforcement in excess of 70 times, yet he was not stopped, even though he committed multiple criminal offenses. So you ask, how can you rely on a law enforcement agency to protect you when they failed so miserably? Even the lefty who denies logic is useful actually uses it in his daily life. He doesn't cross a street without looking. After all, it's either him or that bus. Our task is actually fairly simple. Whenever possible, we have to push the lefty up against a contradiction that he just can't avoid. As we go through life, lots of those will pop up. Some of the time you'll get through. I have a golfing friend who's quite left-wing, but if I'm careful in the way I ask a question, he's able to process the logic and see the point I'm making. On the other hand, I've mentioned in the past a cardiac surgeon friend who simply goes postal in his Facebook posts to me. When I point out his illogical stances, he simply uses louder language. He's not savable in his current state. You won't be successful every time, and you won't be as effective tomorrow as you will be a month from now. This is life. You get better with practice. But if you don't practice, you'll never be effective. Lefties will commonly try to dodge the contradictions you force on them. Don't let them run away. If they argue that AR-15s should be banned, ask them if an AR-15 killed the kids at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. When they say yes, ask them if the gun walked down the halls and fired itself. Keep pushing down this road until they're forced to admit that the gun didn't do it. Nicholas Cruz did it. He is responsible, not the instrument. That gun could sit loaded in the hall for years and would never harm anyone. Once you push them into a corner, don't stop. Now push back on their gun control ideas. How does making the school a gun-free zone make it safer? Wait. Oh, it was already a gun-free zone. That made it safer for Nicholas Cruz, not for the 17 people who died. You get the picture. There's always a way to force a lefty to think. Younger lefties are more savable since they haven't soaked in the Kool-Aid as much. And guns are just one subject. Economics is another. Make each argument personal. How would the lefty appreciate the force they promote being used against them? Never let up. This fight is one we can't afford to lose. We have to engage in it over and over again. We can't simply enjoy our conservative friends. We have to branch out. It's a mission. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Share this with your friends. Please like VidZ on Facebook, support VidZ on Patreon, and follow @VidZ on Twitter. Thanks for watching.